Today in our action rundown, we're going to be talking about the No More Dirty Banks campaign, an effort to defund climate chaos profiteers. Act.tv produced an internationally covered presser, and there's more action to come. Stay tuned. All right, today in our action rundown, we're going to be covering the No More Dirty Banks campaign. This is an effort to defund climate chaos profiteers, like, say, for example, City National Bank. They are actually considered a premier choice for banking in the entertainment industry. They market themselves as the Bank of the Stars, a brilliant marketing campaign, if ever I heard one, to get rich people to put their money in there. And it has attracted many beloved actors, especially the climate conscious ones. They claim to be a leader in climate conscious banking. That's what they call it, climate conscious banking. Yet, despite that claim, the Royal Bank of Canada, who acquired City National Bank in 2015, has invested over $160 billion in tar sands, in fossil fuel extraction, and the transport of these dirty energies, which is a dangerous business. While we were all watching the Hulk, no one was watching the bank, as it became one of the world's largest and most aggressive financiers of climate destruction. The bank, RBC, also claims to respect the inherent right of Indigenous people to self-determination. And that is a quote: respect the inherent right of Indigenous peoples to self-determination. Of course, that is pretty hard to do and be the lead financier of Coastal GasLink, a fracked gas pipeline being built through the pristine territory and waters of the Indigenous people's land. It's the Wet'suwet'en, I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, people's land. And of course, that is without the consent of their hereditary chiefs. By the way, while protesting the destruction of their lands, these chiefs and these protesters have suffered extreme police harassment, raids, arson on where they are living, and armed violence. I think we need just a moment for these people who, in addition to saving and protecting their own sacred land, are actually saving the entire planet from our own foolish greed by not allowing these fossil fuels to be processed, transported, and used in the way that they would like. The banks would love to do it, and the fossil fuel industries would love to do it. The group Indigenous Climate Action and members of the Canadian First Nations, as well as more than 65 Hollywood celebrities, launched the No More Dirty Banks campaign to demand City National's parent company, the Royal Bank of Canada, which we mentioned, to withdraw support for the Coastal Gas pipeline. Much to discuss there, much to unpack. That pipeline is in violation of the rights and sovereignty of the Gidimt'en people. And I hope I got that right in terms of pronunciation. The celebrities have, as you can see here, signed an open letter to the Bank of the Stars. Artists including Mark Ruffalo, Julianne Moore, Naomi Watts, Marissa Tomei. Their clock is ticking like this. Ben Stiller, Edward Norton, Michelle Pfeiffer, tons. Everybody you know, a lot. Scarlett Johansson, Jewel. So many people have signed this letter. We're going to talk about why it's important that celebrities are involved. First of all, here's an intro video from the action organizers laying out what the detailed issues are. Take a look.
Right now, major banks like the Royal Bank of Canada are financing a fracked gas pipeline bulldozing through the land of the Wet'suwet'en Nation in northern British Columbia, Canada. The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs never consented to this pipeline construction through their territories, which would risk the sacred headwaters of the Wazinqua River. But here's where it gets complicated. The Supreme Court of Canada recognized Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs as rightful title holders of the land. But corporations still get away with consulting only elected leadership put in place by the colonial government and not the rightful title holders. What makes this even more urgent is a recent militarized police violence by the Canadian Police, the RCMP. For the last 3 years, and as recently as last November, the RCMP violently arrested and detained non-violent Indigenous land defenders and journalists.
You're trespassing on Wet'suwet'en land.
Publicly, RBC makes grand commitments to respect Indigenous rights, ethical investing, and climate action promises. But not only is RBC funding this pipeline to the tune of $315 million, it is the linchpin to a $6.5 billion loan backed by 26 other banks. Even though RBC has made commitments to Indigenous human rights, they continue to fund Coastal GasLink's violence against the Wet'suwet'en people.
This is our land, our sacred headwaters, Wet'suwet'en, which is the lifeblood of our entire nation. CGL is racing to complete drilling to microtunnel under the Wet'suwet'en without the consent of the hereditary chiefs. RBC's financial ties to this project make them responsible for endangering our drinking water, our salmon, and criminalizing us as Wet'suwet'en people on our own land. RBC's AGM is coming up on April 7th. They'll be announcing their sustainable business practices and the immense profits to their shareholders and to the public. Help us hold them accountable for funding genocide.
You can go to nomoredirtybanks.com to sign on to the letter as well. I think it's interesting. It seems very rapey to me that they're just going to jump in there, push aside the rightful owners, and drill into the land and poison everyone, because that's what happens. The next video we have from that same action is the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chief Namox speaking about what is at stake, the dehumanization of the industry, like capitalism and the financial institutions financing it, and how we need to act and what we need to do. Here he is.
Are not here to make a dollar. What we are here to do is to protect what is happening on this planet, climate change. The water that flows from our lands, they go to the north coast of British Columbia as well as to the south coast. And what we do in British Columbia affects Canada, affects North America, affects the entire planet. I simply do not rely on elected officials. I have no faith in what they go for, because it's industry that steers them. And the money that goes into it from these financial institutions, they don't even report to the people that deal with them, the humans that deal with them. So what has to be looked at is the very fact that people need to make that difference. Money talks, right? And in that their capacity, it is a human that controls it. It is a human that can make the difference. We have to change their pattern when it comes to governments and industry and financial institutions. You know, that same old mold that they want us to fit into, it's failed. It's an absolute failure. You know, science has proved exactly what we can say on our lands of why we've been here for century upon century upon century, and why we've governed ourselves as the land is us and we are the land. Because you take the very base of what you have to survive on and you look after it. Money is not the answer. Actually, right now, everything is being steered by it. The humanity of it is gone. You know, when we have the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, it's not being implemented properly. It's not being taken seriously. When we have the United Nations talk to Canada on what is happening to the Wet'suwet'en and other Indigenous people, it's not being taken seriously. See, that their pattern has to change, and only we can do it. All of us together can make huge changes. But that very pattern, that mold they have out there, break that mold. You know, at one time they told us that we had to stay within this here criteria because it was the only vehicle available. Well, I'll tell you, the wheels fell off, the motor blew up, and the wrong people were steering that vehicle. It is our turn. It always has been. But now it's time to stand up. Speak up. Be human. Messiah.
So brave, these people putting themselves on the line to stop this. Slato is a Checkpoint spokesperson. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Something's talking in the background. Hold on a second. There you go. Slato is, a checkpoint spokesperson who speaks on Indigenous peoples, the fight against the pipeline on their land. Here's the next video.
The world is burning around us. We're in the middle of a war because of fossil fuels. The signs couldn't be more urgent than they are right now.
My bad. This is the Mark Ruffalo video. Let's start. Can you start it over? Sorry about that. I thought we had the Slato video up next. My bad.
The world is burning around us. We're in the middle of a war because of fossil fuels. The signs couldn't be more urgent than they are right now. And we have 2 senators in the United States right now that are heavily funded by the fossil fuel industry on the Democratic side who believe in climate change, stymieing any kind of action today. Why celebrities? Because no one else is doing it. And because we have a voice and our voice reaches the people. And for some reason, we're trusted. Okay? We have this privilege. And we have to use it for the right thing. None of this matters. If our children can't drink the water, they can't breathe the air, they can't go outside, the world burns around them. None of this means anything anymore. And we're all becoming a nerd to it. We're becoming desensitized to this insanity that we're living in. And governments have got to take action. But we see from COP that they've stopped. They're not taking action. Our politicians aren't doing what needs to be done. I used to say for years, we have to fund the fighters. We have to fund the fighters, the people on the front line, so that we can hear from them. And once we hear their stories and the horrors that they're living through, well, our hearts will open and our rationale and our minds will be activated, and we'll start making the changes that need to be made in order to solve this problem. And nothing has happened. And so now I say we have to fight the funders. We have to fight you people, RBC, and in relation, CNB. We have to go to you because it starts with you. I want to be with my kids today. I want to be with my family today. I want to go make moves. This is not how I plan to spend my life, but we can't count on anybody else anymore. It's up to us. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. And that's why we're doing this action. And that's why celebrities are taking part, because it's our money that's being used to do this shit. Sorry. It's obscene. We're living in a totally insane upside down world, and we have to do something. And so we're doing it. And so that's why now. And that's why celebrities.
I think that answers a good question about the why celebrities. And I also think, obviously, unfortunately, that celebrities actually hit the Twitter feed. And, you guys are watching this show. We follow politics. We follow activism. We follow what's actually going on. It's hard to get information out there these days, but most Americans are busy following whether Pete Davidson is getting on a rocket to space. They're not necessarily following this stuff. So celebrities do play a crucial role, whether you wish they would or wouldn't. Here's the question. Is their money being used to fund this? So are they going to pull that money out if the bank doesn't change? We'll talk about that at the end of the segment. But first, I've got Slato, a checkpoint spokesperson that I spoke of a moment ago, speaking on the Indigenous people's fight against the pipeline on their lands.
This pipeline will not go through. This project, the investors in this project will never see the fruition of this project happen. They will never see the benefits from this project, and we will continue to live on our lands as Wet'suwet'en people, upholding Wet'suwet'en law forever. In the face of militarized raids, in the face of guns, in the face of violence, we will stand up and fight for what is rightfully our responsibility to ensure that is there for our future generations. Outsa.
Beautiful. Also, I have another piece of this press conference. Melina Lubacan Massimo, the co-founder and senior director at Indigenous Climate Action, spoke about what this fight is really all about.
The Bank of Canada owns City National Bank, which is also known as the Hollywood Bank of the Stars. As a part of our No More Dirty Banks campaign launch, we have released a letter signed by over 65 Hollywood celebrities. This letter is demanding that City National's bank parent company, Royal Bank of Canada, withdraw financial support from Coastal GasLink pipeline effective immediately. We are here to support Wet'suwet'en Indigenous land defenders fighting the construction of a 416-mile Coastal GasLink pipeline slated to cut under the sacred Wet'suwet'en River without the consent of the hereditary chiefs.
What else needs to be said? I mean, this is an action that we are going to cover over and over, and we're going to keep looking at here on our program. Go to nomoredirtybanks.com and sign the petition to make sure that people know that lots of people are paying attention, because everybody again knows that people are paying attention to Pete Davidson and not necessarily paying attention to this. And I know there's a lot of things keeping our minds busy, like a war in Ukraine and all the things that are attendant with that, but that usually gives fossil fuel companies and other ne'er-do-wells the opportunity to ne'er-do-well without anyone paying attention, because everyone is talking about Putin. So again, go to nomoredirtybanks.com and sign that petition. I mean, the bank put itself out there as climate conscious, which is interesting because even that verbiage doesn't make any promises. Climate conscious. Well, to me, it sounds like that's dithering and hedging and incrementalism. Like, oh, we're conscious about what happened and we're going to be careful. But what we need, everyone's conscious about the climate right now. What we need is climate radical banks, not climate conscious banks, and kudos to the prominent people for doing something to raise awareness here. Also, it's important, I guess, for their own personal brands to make sure that we know that they themselves are green. Because, as everyday people find out that Mark Ruffalo has his bank or money in a bank that's building pipelines, well, the Green Ruffalo brand would certainly be tarnished, and we don't want to do that. But I do believe that his heart is in the right place. And if you pull your money out of a bank that's conscious, where are you going to put it? Or again, that brings me back to this idea of climate radical banks. Do we have any? You can put them in the chat if you know anything about them. But for now, we have to press the banks that we have to go, I don't know, maybe full solar, shall we? And also, this particular action, the stars are demanding that the bank become more than just climate conscious. Their letter they signed asked them specifically to withdraw their support from the Coastal GasLink pipeline effective immediately. But are they going to ask them to withdraw from other projects? RBC isn't just in the one pipeline and then it's full on solar. That's just not happening. We thank the Indigenous Climate Action Group for doing this work, and we will be following your progress there. Coming up in a few minutes, I have Imani Oakley, who's going to be joining me. She is running for the House of Representatives in New Jersey. So stay with me, New Jersey's 10. That's going to be our interview coming up next.